All right, let's talk about one of the most ridiculously punishing motorsport events ever created. It's called the Marathon de la Route, and trust me, it was designed from the ground up to absolutely break both the car and the driver.
Just try to wrap your head around this number. 90. That's 90 hours of nonstop driving. We're talking nearly 4 days straight with your hands on the wheel. Maybe, if you got lucky, a short break here or there. And no, this wasn't some hypothetical torture scenario. This was the reality for drivers in 1961. So right off the bat, you have to ask yourself that question. I mean, really think about it. Because for the people who actually did this race, just surviving was the first victory. Finishing was almost secondary. So how in the world did a race this insane even get started? Well, it all began with a very simple but incredibly brutal idea. Let's create a challenge that's basically impossible and see which cars and which drivers are tough enough to actually finish it. Okay, so what was it exactly? Officially, it was a rally for touring cars. You know, the kind of cars you could theoretically go out and buy. But just calling it a rally doesn't even begin to capture the madness. For 40 years, this thing was a rolling experiment to find the absolute breaking point of human and mechanical endurance. The whole history of the race really breaks down into 3 distinct chapters. Each one is a little different, with its own unique flavor of difficulty. We're going to start with the early days, the wild, almost lawless rallies on the open road, and then we'll see how the race was eventually forced to cage itself inside the most terrifying racetrack on Earth. The first era, and maybe the most famous, was the Liège-Rome-Liège. Now, this wasn't a race on some closed-off, sanitized track. Oh no, this was a flat-out, pedal-to-the-metal sprint across an entire continent, on public roads, with an absolutely unforgiving clock as your main enemy. You see, the whole thing was built around what everyone called the impossible time schedule. You'd set off on a Wednesday night and you just didn't stop until Sunday. You're covering thousands of kilometers, flying through treacherous mountain passes, dealing with everyday traffic, all while trying to maintain an average speed that left 0 room for mistakes, 0 room for sleep, and definitely no room for big repairs. So what kind of car could even survive this? Well, this is where cars like the Porsche 356 SL became legends. It was super light, it was nimble, and most importantly, it was reliable. On those winding, high-altitude roads in the Alps, that lightweight design and its bulletproof air-cooled engine gave it a massive edge over heavier, more powerful, but also more fragile cars. The machine had to be just as tough as the driver. By the early 60s, you can probably guess what was happening. Traffic in Western Europe was getting heavier, making a high-speed road rally a huge problem. So the organizers got creative. They shifted the whole route east to Liège-Sofia-Liège, hoping to find the quieter roads in places like Yugoslavia and Bulgaria. The destination changed, but that relentless non-stop spirit? Oh, that stayed exactly the same. And if you want proof of just how hard this was, look at these numbers. For the first Liège-Sofia-Liège in '61, 85 of the best teams in Europe started the race. After 90 hours of hell, only 8 cars crossed the finish line. That is an insane attrition rate, over 90%. Cars were just shattered by the side of the road, and drivers literally collapsed from exhaustion. It was absolutely brutal. But, you know, this kind of wild, continent-crossing racing was living on borrowed time. The world was changing fast, and the marathon was about to be forced into a massive change of its own. The simple truth was, governments just weren't going to put up with a high-speed race on public roads anymore. It was just too dangerous, for the public and for the racers. One by one, countries started banning the rally from their territory. The era of the Great Open Road Marathon was over. But the organizers didn't give up. They came up with a brilliant, if slightly crazy, solution. If we can't race across all of Europe, they thought, let's find the single toughest piece of road in Europe and just race there. And that's exactly what they did. They moved the entire event to the infamous Nürburgring in Germany, better known as the Green Hell. This completely changed the game. The challenge was totally different now. It wasn't about navigating strange roads or dodging civilian cars anymore. Now, it was about pure, monotonous, mechanical endurance. It became a siege. How long could your car and your mind withstand being pushed to the absolute limit, lap after grinding lap, on the same brutal circuit? And here's the crazy part. You'd think moving to a track would make it easier, right? Nope. They did the opposite. They made it longer. The first event at the ring in '65 was 82 hours. By the time they held the final race in 1971, they had stretched it to an almost unbelievable 96 hours. That's 4 solid days and nights of racing on the most demanding track in the world. And just like before, the cars had to evolve to meet this new challenge. Porsche came out with the 911R, and it had a special semi-automatic gearbox called the Sportomatic. This was a game changer. It massively reduced the physical strain on the drivers. I mean, think about it. Not having to pump a clutch pedal thousands upon thousands of times let them focus on just surviving those endless dizzying laps. But even this new, supposedly safer version of the race couldn't go on forever. The incredible strain it put on the cars, the teams, and the drivers, well, it was all becoming just too much. And so 1971 would be the final year. After 40 years of pushing the boundaries of what was possible, the Marathon de la Haute quietly crossed its own finish line for the last time. So, what do we take away from this incredible story? The marathon remains probably the ultimate test of endurance motorsport has ever seen. It forced car companies to build tougher, more reliable machines, and it showcased a level of human grit that is just legendary. It was truly from a different time, an event so extreme, it's hard to imagine anyone even attempting it today. And that really leaves us with a fascinating final thought. We all know modern cars are amazingly reliable. A car could probably do it. But could a person? Could a modern race car driver handle the mental and physical toll of racing flat out for 96 straight hours? What do you think?